I'm Allison, and this is Nellie, and it's been 1 whole year since I bought my Scout Tuktut camper and started living in it part-time, so I thought now would be a good time to share a few thoughts about it. A little review of sorts. But since I started filming this video, things haven't exactly gone to plan.
What state am I even in? This is not my weekend.
This is a first for me.
This got chaotic quickly.
I have no idea where I am.
This is just where we're at today, which is to say, I don't know where we're at.
See, I've been trying to film this review for over a month now, but one aborted mushroom hunting trip and 1 month-long impromptu jaunt across the country later, I finally have my thoughts together. I think. So buckle in because we've got 6,000 miles and about as many thoughts to cover after this longest road trip I've ever taken in my Scout.
Hello everyone. I am stoked. Why am I stoked? Because I have cabin fever and I am long overdue for a mushroom hunting trip. It occurred to me as I was packing the camper today that about this time last year, I was packing the camper to go on my first mushroom hunting trip in it. I think it's time for a 1-year review of this little baby. So now guess who's coming with me on this mushroom hunting trip? You. You are coming with me and we're gonna talk about how the last year has been living part-time in my Scout Tuktut.
We are leaving just in time for the weather to get absolutely terrible. Alright, well, this has never happened to me before. In all of my years I've been hiking and mushroom hunting, this is a first. So I roll up on the trailhead today and there is a whole RV there. Not the kind of RV that you want to park next to at the trailhead and leave your car all day either. They have clearly been living there. So I'm not going to disturb them. The way the encampment is set up, they don't look like people who want to be disturbed. So it's time to come up with a backup plan.
Well, good morning. It is 30 hours later. As you can see, I'm home already. Here's what happened. 3 trailheads I drove to in the middle of nowhere on Friday. At 3 different trailheads on the Olympic Peninsula, there was an RV situation at the trailhead. After the 3rd time, I decided, you know what? This is not my weekend.
So if you've been watching a while, you know I spent a few solid years traveling the country nearly full-time in a tiny trailer, a New Camp Tag. This is my 2nd camper setup, but unlike the Tag, I bought this camper for a totally different mission. My mission here, in this camper, is mainly to camp in the city where I work a few days a week, now that I'm going to the office more, thus saving me an actual pile of money every month in commuting costs. So I wasn't all too bothered by the $28,000 price tag. Granted, that is really steep for such a small setup. And as you can see, it goes on some extracurricular missions here and there too. While I've shown you before how well it accomplishes its main mission as a portable city house, we had yet to truly put it through the ringer on a long, multi-week trip, until now. How about we start with just getting this thing on and off your truck? Although it's not quite as quick and easy to leave this camper behind as it is to unhook a trailer, the nature of it being a truck camper means I don't have to do this very often. If your vehicle isn't too wide, this is still a relatively beginner-friendly process. If your truck or its tires are like mine though, the fit might be a little too much of a squeeze for your comfort. If it fits at all. I have less than 2 inches of wiggle room to back mine, but have so far decided against getting jack extenders myself, since I would hardly ever use them anyway. The bed width of the Tuktut is meant to fit in a smallish pickup like a Jeep or a Toyota. The length, however, means the tailgate either has to come off or you'll just need to embrace having a little front porch all the time. My truck also already had 4 D-rings in the bed attached to some major support structures, but you may need to get some added depending on your truck. The retracting ratchet straps are plenty sturdy and very easy to use. I think the most common question I see in online forums about literally any camper really is this: can my truck haul this? And that's the most important question you should be asking before buying any camper for your safety and the safety of others. But I am happy to report that for one person and her dog, a Jeep Gladiator Rubicon can handle this load just fine. And the trim is actually relevant here. The Rubicon, at least when I bought mine in 2021, shipped with a very good shock upgrade, and I am happy with the way it handles the camper without any further suspension finagling. I do sometimes get a bit of sway on rough highways or on windy days, but that's nothing that slowing down for just a second doesn't correct. But the folks at the dealership told me that other Gladiator trims, like a Wrangler, were actually not safe to drive off the lot without suspension upgrades like leaf springs or airbags. For full-time use, you may also find your stock truck suspension to be perfectly adequate. I've had folks following me on windy roads, and they have remarked how well it seems to handle from their point of view, and it usually feels fine where I'm sitting too, so I've decided against an upgrade for my use so far. But if I spent any more time off-road, and probably if I traveled full-time, I'd go for a suspension upgrade. I've also seen some folks mention they didn't like the way their truck drove without the camper after their upgrade, so for most folks this is going to be a matter of preference and of packing. The Scout Tuktut weighs 620 pounds dry. My truck is designed to handle up to 1,700 pounds of payload, which leaves me a comfortable amount of weight left for my gear, like the battery and fridge, myself, and some luggage. But I'm only one person who prefers to pack on the lighter side, so if you're considering this setup with a whole family, you might want to more carefully scrutinize your math and consider a lighter pop-up camper if you're cutting it too close.
Good morning. How are you? Well, this got chaotic quickly. What state am I even in? Well, I have a confession to make. I stayed in a hotel last night. It's been over a year since I've had the camper. I've been trying to tell you about it for a couple of weeks now, and stuff just keeps coming up. Wouldn't you know it, I end up in New Mexico. These things just happen to me. I had to do a little bit of unplanned travel, and this is day 5 of driving. I woke up at a truck stop, as one does when they're traveling this way. When you drive that much non-stop and you don't do anything else, you don't feel human anymore. You're dirty and gross and tired. You don't know where you are. You're probably dehydrated because you've just been driving like a zombie all day. So I thought, you know what? Hotel. Here we are in the hotel parking lot. The camper is great for these situations. It's really comfortable to stay in. If you just roll into a truck stop, it's like 10 steps above sleeping in the front seat of your car. It's so nice to just pull over, you crank the heat for a little bit, you get in bed all toasty, and you have like a good night's sleep. That's really hard to do at a truck stop. Big A+ for the camper for this kind of travel. But I have no regrets about the hotel. Looks like I have 62% battery left, so it's doing pretty good on battery. It's been 5 days since I've charged it. You have no idea we're gonna be in the car all day again, do you?
I seem to have properly broken things in, and sometimes I literally broke things. Yes, those graphic novels are still holding up the battery shelf, but a kind commenter gave me a good idea for the fix, so I will be getting those books back soon. Anyway, now that we're all settled with some experience, there are a few upgrades that have found their way onto my to-do list. I've been making do with a portable solar panel, but I'm finding that I use it often enough to justify putting a flex panel on the roof and returning this portable panel back to its rightful place in my backup solar setup in my actual home. It's hot enough in the summer also to justify an air conditioner, and damp enough to justify one of those systems you stick under your mattress to raise it off the bed shelf, which is prone to lots of condensation. Without the vinyl mattress cover, or getting airflow under the bed, the materials of a real mattress are prone to molding. I'll also be purchasing a small safe to bolt somewhere, I'll figure that out later, after I had a little break-in. I haven't had to do much in the way of maintenance so far, and that's mostly due to lack of features like propane, plumbing, and other appliances. One of the more common issues I see talked about is water intrusion, and this is almost always because the seals eventually go bad. They need to be replaced every couple years maybe, depending on your environment and how you store it. I'll probably do mine in the spring next year. I've also had 2 minor whoopsies with the battery. One time it got too cold to run the battery, which I now know is an issue in colder climates. So much so, folks have fabricated their own parts that direct heat from the heater closer to the battery to keep it running in the winter. In my case, I just had to make the 60-mile trip home and heat it up by my fireplace in order to charge it again. But you can see how this could be a disaster for a full-timer in a cold climate. The next whoopsie happened in the summer, but I think it had to do more with the battery itself than the weather. See, I know now that, for some reason that still is not clear to me, the battery will sometimes shut off power while it's charging. This was a problem during a heat wave because it was too hot to camp one week, so I took the camper off the truck, stored it in the garage, plugged in the battery, just like I always do. I opened said garage over a week later and was hit with the most distinctively foul smell of a refrigerator that had been turned off in a heat wave. Why I lost power while plugged in, I do not know, but the pattern I've noticed since then is that it happens most often when I'm charging with very little juice left in the first place. You'll also find a lot of other complaints online with the Yeti Goal Zero battery that Scout ships with, but I haven't seen a problem quite like my case of the rotting fridge yet. It took a few weeks to get the smell out after that, that's for sure. Anyway, let's check in on road tripping Allison, shall we?
A few years ago, around this time of year actually, I was in this very same Denny's parking lot in Tucson, Arizona. And that's fine. Life is good because I'm about to go see some saguaro cacti, which was not the goal of this trip, but I am not about to drive 2,000 miles and incidentally go through Tucson without seeing some cacti. Gotta put on my boots. We can't go traipsing around out there in sandals. That's not a good idea.
Okay, well, if you're sitting here now wondering whether you could live in a tiny truck camper, it's worth noting that a good deal of the footage you've seen is shot with a wide-angle lens, meaning the space probably looks just a little bigger than it actually is. To give you a slightly better sense of scale, I am 5 feet 7 inches tall. That means I can stand and move around and get dressed and stuff in here pretty comfortably. It also means I, very conveniently, don't need any of the bunk extenders that came with it, and I can sleep in the bed parallel to the bunk windows. However, my feet do sometimes touch the wall while I'm sleeping, and sometimes I find myself pushing off the wall with my feet so I can scoot up in the bed again. The sink is also really tiny, like washing only one dish at a time tiny. It's barely big enough to wash your face and brush your teeth, and it's a little inconveniently placed under the water jug. I would have maybe moved it over a few inches, but I see why they put it there to maximize the usable counter space and under sink storage, which already isn't a lot but perfectly adequate for cooking simple meals. It also doesn't have a shower or a toilet. I'm able to shower at work, so this hasn't been a big deal for me. And while I did have a portable toilet I kept in the Jeep for emergencies, I never ended up having to use it because the places I was parking had access to bathrooms, so I passed it on to another full-time RVer. This thing does not have all the features of home, but I assume that because you've watched the video so far up to this point, you're more like me and not terribly interested in a land yacht with full-sized creature comforts. And because it's so small and simple, again, it doesn't come with a lot of the maintenance chores of most typical RVs. Okay, well, while I wrap up the last 1,000 or so miles of our longest road trip ever in this camper, so far, let's blaze through some high-level hits and misses. The hits? Scout campers are pretty modular and almost infinitely customizable, with lots of build options online, but also a good blank canvas for lots of DIY projects. I think that tends to be its main draw with folks. Scout has a reputation for sturdy builds and simple setups, and this smallest of their models doesn't disappoint in that regard. To answer another question I see folks asking a lot, yes, the bunk windows are absolutely worth the extra cost. Not only do they make the space feel bigger, but they make it easier to cool and ventilate when the weather is warm, or you get a bunch of condensation built up inside. And all the windows, including the skylight, have screens, not to mention the size of them. I've said this before and it's still true. If I'm sleeping outdoors, I want to be able to see the outdoors. The bench space is pretty nice, with enough room on one side for me to lounge around pretty comfortably without needing to be in bed. However, they aren't terribly deep, so someone much larger than me might not find them as comfortable. Because, well, you might slide off. And speaking of space, I'll need to do a video someday comparing my truck camper to my tiny teardrop trailer, but the thing I like most about this camper is the ability to stand up, and stand up to cook inside. I know those are simple things, but it's the biggest quality of life improvement over the trailer. And now some misses. While they're pretty minor, they're still worth mentioning. While I haven't had the kind of trouble other folks have had with the thermostat breaking, the interface design still leaves a lot to be desired.
Now, I see a lot of talk about the actual thermostat control. This, my friends, this is a problem for a lot of people. How do I put this? As a UX designer by trade, I have to tell you, all of you on the forums complaining about the interface and the controls for the heater, y'all are not wrong. You are absolutely correct that the interface on the heater really sucks. This looks suspiciously like Comic Sans. Typography snobbery aside, it's actually like not that easy to use, and when you click around, it's not that intuitive to use. However, here's how I use it and here's how it works for me. I go into setup, I put the heating mode on external sensor, and then I set, right now I have it turned all the way down. I set my temperature, and believe it or not, like, if I set this thing to 60 degrees, it'll be like 70 something in here. There's really no rhyme or reason to the thermostat. I'm just gonna say it. The most comfortable sleep I've ever had is when I crank it a lot and then just turn it off for the night, honestly, and then crank it again when I wake up in the morning, or if I wake up in the middle of the night. The worst thing that's happened, I have left it on like 55, the thermostat, and I have woke up in the middle of the night absolutely suffocating. But thank goodness, the ventilation works great if you wake up in the middle of the night just sweltering. Pop open the sunroof and then pop open at least one of the bunk windows. It'll air out in here pretty quickly, it'll cool off, you'll be fine. But oh my gosh, is it a panic the first 5 minutes when you wake up and you realize the heat is running. The other thing that confuses people, number one, that's taking a minute to like kind of get up to speed and really start blowing hot air. It's still not blowing hot air, this is like lukewarm air. It'll warm up in a second. This confuses people because the pump starts going, everything needs to heat up before it starts blowing air on you, and people think it's not working. Which is not true. The other thing that happens is you'll get a fault code on this guy, probably, and this is the only time it's happened to me. I got a fault code, I can't remember what the number is. It means the pump isn't getting enough fuel. So you're either out of fuel or you've been driving with the thermostat on and the pump has been trying to pump fuel, but you're swaying a whole bunch and your fuel might be kind of low and it's just not getting fuel, so it'll throw a fault code. Just like shut off the thermostat, turn it back on when you stop, and it'll kick back on. There are some people who have gotten a fault code and have never recovered from that. I don't know what that's about. I believe you though that it's not recoverable. This thing is really finicky. It's not my favorite thing that I've ever dealt with. The other problem that people have with the heater, you can actually feel it on the wall right now. I don't know if you can hear it, but the heat pump makes this like knocking noise, and when you're laying in bed up here,
you can feel it like knocking against the wall. There is insulation you can get, you can insulate it. I'm planning on insulating the box that holds the diesel heater at some point. Let me turn this off. Here's the other thing that upsets people. And you can see, it doesn't just like shut off right away. So if you're dying, sweltering in the heat, and you try to shut this thing off, it's gonna take a hot second for it to shut off. Here is when I like to navigate over to stop, and it stops like quite a bit quicker.
Personally, I still don't fully understand how it works with all the 3 different sensors and the ability to just control the power level of the heater, but I did eventually find some settings I can live with. The kitchen storage is kind of just a cavern where things go to roll around and get lost, and if you pack it too full, you're gonna end up banging around in there, waking up your neighbors to make some breakfast in the morning. I've found that keeping some plastic containers in there keeps stuff from shifting too much in transit, though I can still hear stuff moving around all the way in the Jeep while I'm driving. Don't put anything fragile in there. And a word about storage in general. There isn't a whole lot built into this system out of the factory. While Scout offers some storage solutions that hang from the ceiling, I see a lot of folks building their own shelving too. For me, I'd already taken the back seat out of my truck to fit more gear, so between a suitcase inside and some containers in the cab where the back seat should be, I can bring a good deal of stuff pretty comfortably. Even a paddleboard. I'm slightly annoyed that I can't see how much water is left in my water jug, and it's way too much of a pain to take it out and fill it and hoist it back up on the mounts, so I just fill it with a few trips to the tap with a plastic jug. So here's my verdict 1 year on and several thousand miles later. I'm calling this mission accomplished. The Scout Tuktut is a very good fit for my needs and lifestyle, handles well on my truck, and fits everything a single minimalist and her dog needs. It makes a fine portable hotel for an unplanned trip across the country. And just when I was about to finish this video a week before Christmas, the power went out to the whole town I live in. So it came in handy as a hotel parked in my driveway with backup power, as well as internet thanks to a recent addition of a Starlink Mini. If you're considering this camper, work backward from weighing yourselves and the gear you need to be happy, and if it's in your weight budget and bank budget, I say go for it and have fun out there. It's kind of hard not to. And now for Nellie's last word.
Until finally I woke up yesterday. Can I have that? Thank you. One moment. I'll give it back, I promise. I'm so tired. Shh. Don't sass me. My microphone now matches my hat. What do you think of our new microphone? No, it's not. It's not tasty. Hello. No, that's not your. This is your toy. That is not your toy. This is yours. This is mine. Got it? What? Why would you think you get anything? Wait. This fool talking to me like I owe her something. Do you know it is a full 9 hours before you're supposed to EAT? Is that what you're asking me right now? You are out of your mind.